I know how this sounds. But the wedding rehearsal was in the church basement because the sanctuary had water damage, and the air smelled like wet hymnals and someone's floral perfume. Claire's, it turned out. I was arranging programs on the folding table when Rachel came up behind me and said, "Elena, we need to talk about something." She was holding a Starbucks cup, the kind with the green straw, and she kept tapping the lid with her fingernail. "Claire's going to stand up with me instead." I didn't say anything. I just kept stacking programs. She said, "Michael can't make it tomorrow, and we thought it would be less awkward if it was just family." That was when I noticed she wasn't wearing her engagement ring. She'd switched it out for a costume piece. I didn't tell her I'd already printed the programs. I didn't tell her I'd written something and folded it into the top one. I printed them myself, 200 copies, double-sided on ivory card stock. Cost me $63 at the copy shop and another $40 for the ribbons I tied around each one. I'd been at it for 3 hours the night before, sitting on the living room floor while Michael watched basketball in the den. He didn't ask what I was doing. He never asked anymore. The church basement had drop ceilings and beige walls and a linoleum floor that someone had waxed one too many times. The folding tables were arranged in a U-shape near the front, and the caterer's assistant was setting out water pitchers. Rachel's fiancé, James, stood by the altar, which was really just a wooden podium the church used for announcements, talking to the pastor about something that made both of them laugh. Claire was in the corner on her phone, one hand fiddling with the hem of her dress. She'd worn a silk slip dress in pale pink, which was not the dress code Rachel had sent out, but Claire never followed dress codes. That was her whole thing. Cute and unpredictable. The family had been saying that about her since she was 8. I kept stacking the programs. I'd brought them in a canvas tote from the museum gift shop, and I'd pulled out exactly half of them before Rachel walked over. The other half were still in the bag. I could feel the letter I'd tucked into the top program, the one I'd folded into a tight square and slipped between the cover and the first page. The weight of it was nothing. I could feel it through the paper. Elena. Rachel came closer. She set her coffee down on the table next to the stack, and I watched the condensation ring start to soak into the card stock. "You're not mad, are you?" I looked at her. She was 43. My younger sister by 4 years, and she'd been engaged for 11 months. This was her second wedding. The first one had lasted 6 years, and she'd spent the last 3 of them telling everyone how miserable she was. This time she'd found James, who was patient and kind and made good money in commercial insurance, and she'd decided this was the one. I believed her. I still did. "It's your wedding," I said. "You can have whoever you want." I just thought, with Michael not coming. She stopped, tilted her head. "He's really not coming. He said he had a closing." "He has a closing." She waited for something else. I didn't give it to her. She bit her lip. Rachel had a habit of biting her lip when she wanted to say something she knew she shouldn't. "Look, I love you. You know I love you. But Claire's been helping with so much of the planning, and it just made sense for her to be up there. You're still doing the reading. You're still Rachel." I picked up another program. "It's fine. You don't sound fine." I tied a ribbon. I'd done this enough times that my fingers knew the motion. Cross, loop, pull. Cross, loop, pull. The ivory card stock felt cold against my palms. The church basement was sealed despite the humidity outside, and the air conditioners in the windows were rattling in their frames. "Really?" I said. "It's fine." She didn't believe me. I could see it on her face. But she was also Rachel, and Rachel had spent her whole life believing what she wanted to believe. That was how she'd gotten through the first divorce. That was how she'd made it to 43 without ever once admitting that maybe she'd made a mistake. She put her hand on my shoulder, a quick squeeze, the kind that meant I did what I had to do, and walked back toward James. Claire looked up from her phone. She was 29, the baby of the family, and she'd never had a job that lasted more than 18 months. She was a yoga instructor now, and before that she'd been a personal assistant for a woman who sold essential oils, and before that she'd managed a boutique that went out of business. She was always between things. That was her whole thing too. She'd been the one who called me 3 weeks ago to say she wanted to step up for Rachel because she'd been through so much. I'd told her I was the maid of honor. She'd said, I know, but you're so busy with your work, and Michael's always traveling, and I thought maybe I could take some of the pressure off. I'd said no. She'd said okay. That had been the end of it, or so I thought. I looked at the program I was holding. It listed the order of service, the songs, the readings. My name was at the bottom, right where it had always been. Reading by Elena, sister of the bride. That party hadn't changed. They'd just moved me further down the page. The door to the basement stairwell opened, and I heard heels clicking on the concrete. My mother. She was wearing a navy dress she'd bought at Nordstrom 3 weeks ago, and she'd done her hair the way she always did for weddings, teased up in the front like she was still in the 80s. She came straight for me. What's this I hear about Claire, she said. No hello. No how are you? Nothing, I said. Rachel asked her to stand up. My mother's face did something complicated. She was 71, and she'd stopped pretending to hide her opinions about a decade ago. That's not fair to you. It's fine. It's not fine. You've been planning this since March. I looked at her. I've been planning what of the wedding? You helped her with the venue. You helped with the florist. You even, she gestured at the stack of programs. You printed these. You paid for them. She asked Claire. She asked Claire because she felt sorry for her. Claire's been moping around for months because she can't keep a boyfriend, and Rachel thinks if she gives her something to do it'll make her feel better. My mother shook her head. That's not your problem. I didn't say anything. The truth was, I'd known about this for 3 days. Rachel had called me Tuesday night, her voice all soft and apologetic, and she'd told me she was reconsidering the roles. She'd said it was about logistics. She'd said Claire had offered to handle the rehearsal dinner, and the seating party and the favors, and it made more sense to have her up front. I'd said okay. She'd said, you're not upset. I'd said no. I'd hung up and sat in the dark for an hour, and then I'd route printing the programs anyway. My mother was still talking. You should say something. You should stand up for yourself. You've always been too, Mom. I put the program down. It's one day. It's her wedding. She can have whatever she wants. She looked at me like I'd said something in a language she didn't speak. That was my mother. She believed in confrontation. She believed in stating your case and forcing the other person to see your side. She'd been like that my whole life, and she'd never understood why I wasn't like that too. You're too much like your father, she said finally. Maybe. She huffed something under her breath and walked away to find Rachel. I went back to the programs. I had 73 left. I could do 73 in about 15 minutes if I didn't stop. The basement was filling up now. The wedding party was supposed to be here, but so far only Rachel, James, Claire, and the pastor had shown up. There was a girl from Rachel's office who was supposed to be an usher, and a guy James had gone to college with who was supposed to be a groomsman, and a few other people whose names I'd forgotten. I wasn't paying attention. I was counting programs. 200 total. I'd stacked them in groups of 25. I'd put the top one aside. The one with the letter "id" written it Tuesday night, after Rachel's phone call. I'd sat at my desk in the study, the same desk I'd been sitting at for 18 years, and I'd written it on my good stationery. The stuff with the watermark. The stuff I used for thank you notes and nothing else. I'd told myself I wasn't going to give it to her. I'd told myself it was just exercise, just getting the words out. But I'd folded it anyway. I'd tucked it in the program. And I'd brought it here. Michael had been in the den that night too. He'd come out around 10 to get a glass of water, and he'd seen me at the desk with the programs and the ribbons and the letter I was trying to hide. He'd asked what I was doing. I'd said, working on something for Rachel. He'd nodded and gone back to the den. He hadn't kissed me. He hadn't touched my shoulder. He just walked back into the room with the TV and the leather chair and the silence. That was 3 days ago. 2 days ago, I found the receipt. I wasn't looking for it. I'd been putting his suit jackets in the dry cleaning bag, the way I always did, and the receipt had fallen out of the inside pocket. It was from a hotel downtown, the Riot on 4th Street, and it showed a charge for one night, room service, and a movie rental. The date was 6 weeks ago. I'd been out of town, visiting a site in Charleston for work. Michael had told me he was staying home. He'd sent me a text that night saying he was ordering pizza and watching the game. I remembered because I'd been sitting in my hotel room, eating a salad from a plastic container, and I'd thought how nice it was that he was so predictable. I'd looked at the receipt for a long time. I'd felt nothing at first. Then I'd felt something too big to name, something that sta root in my chest and moved down into my stomach. I'd put the receipt back in the pocket and hung the jacket in the closet. I'd gone to bed. He'd been asleep, and I'd lain there for 3 hours, listening to him breathe, thinking about the pizza and the game and the room service charge for two. I didn't confront him. I didn't know who to confront. I didn't even know if I was right. The receipt could have been from a meeting. He traveled a lot. He'd stayed in hotels before. But the room service charge was for $63 and the movie rental was pay-per-view, and I knew Michael. He didn't watch movies in his room when he was alone. He called me. He always called me. That was Tuesday. The day Rachel had told me about Claire. I'd spent Wednesday in a fog. I'd gone to work, sat through a meeting about a 19th century courthouse we were restoring, and come home without remembering any of it. I'd made dinner. Michael had come home at 7. He'd asked about the courthouse. I'd said fine. He'd gone to the den. On Thursday, I'd called a lawyer. Just to ask. Just to know. The lawyer's name was Susan, and she'd told me to document everything. She'd told me not to move money out of joint accounts until I had a plan. She'd told me to stay calm. I'd hung up and sat at my desk for an hour, and then I'd sta root printing programs. The church basement was too loud now. Someone had sta root music, some pop song from 5 years ago that Claire was trying to dance to. Rachel was laughing. James was watching her with the kind of look that used to make me feel hopeful and now made me feel like I'd forgotten something important. I finished the last program and tied the last ribbon. The stack was neat, all 200 of them, lined up in rows of 5. The top one was still there. The one with the letter. I picked it up. I could feel the fold through the paper. It was a small thing, just a single sheet of ivory stationery, but it had taken me an hour to write. I'd rewritten it 3 times. I'd crossed out words and sta root over. I'd ended up with something that wasn't angry and wasn't sad. It was just words. Just questions. Asterisk dar Rachel, asterisk, do you remember when I was the one who stayed up with you the night before your first wedding? You were so sta red you couldn't stop shaking, and I sat with you in your APA retment, and I told you it was all going to work out. I told you the only thing that mattered was that you loved him. I was 28 years old, and I believed that was true, asterisk. Asterisk, I don't think I believe that anymore. But that's not your fault. Asterisk, I'm writing this because I want to say something I've never said to anyone, and I'm not sure I could say it out loud. I've spent so many years being the one who holds everything together. I've been the one who prints the programs and ties the ribbons and tells everyone it's fine. I've been the one who doesn't ask for anything because I'm afraid of what happens if someone says no, asterisk, but here's the thing. I don't know if I can do that anymore. I don't know if I want to, asterisk. Asterisk, I hope your wedding is everything you ever wanted. I hope James is the person you think he is. I hope you never have to find a receipt in someone's jacket pocket and wonder if you're losing your mind. Asterisk, I love you. I just don't know if I know how to say it without all this other weight. Asterisk, Elena, asterisk, I looked at it now, folded in the program, and I wondered if I'd made a mistake. The letter was too honest. Too raw. It was the kind of thing you wrote at 2 in the morning and threw away in the morning. The kind of thing you didn't show anyone because it would break something you couldn't fix. But I was holding it. And Rachel was across the room, laughing at something Claire had said, and she hadn't looked at me in 20 minutes. I walked over to the table where the programs were. I set the one with the letter on top of the stack, face up. The cover said Wedding of Rachel and H.A. Riss and James Patrick Reynolds in gold foil letters. Underneath it, in smaller script, it said May 12, 2026. I'd chosen the font. I'd designed the layout. I'd done it all myself, because Rachel had asked me to, and because I'd thought it would mean something. I looked at the top program. The one with the letter. I didn't move it. I didn't take it out. Elena. I turned. Michael was standing at the bottom of the stairwell, and he was holding a suit bag over his shoulder, and he looked like he'd come straight from work. His tie was undone. His shirt was untucked. He was here, and he was supposed to be at a closing. I thought you weren't coming, I said. He walked toward me, and I watched him navigate the folding chairs and the water pitchers and the caterer's assistant. And I watched Rachel's face change from surprise to confusion to something that looked almost like guilt. She hadn't told me Michael was coming. She'd made a decision based on the idea that he wasn't, and now he was here. Changed my mind, he said. He was close enough to touch me, but he didn't. Figured I should be here. Important night. I looked at him. He looked like he'd been in a hurry. His hair was messy. His eyes were slightly red. He hadn't planned to come. He'd made a decision at the last minute, maybe 10 minutes ago, maybe 20. He'd driven here without changing. He'd walked in looking like a man who hadn't had time to think. I don't need you to be here, I said. He blinked. What? I don't need you to be here, I said again. I kept my voice low. I'd been practicing that all week. Low and steady. I've been doing this alone. I was fine alone. You can go back to your closing. The closing is done. Then you can go home. He read at me. I'd never spoken to him like that. 22 years, and I'd never said something that direct. I'd never told him I didn't need him. I'd never wanted him to leave before. Elena, he said, and he said it softly, like he was trying to figure out what was happening. Are you okay? I didn't answer. I looked past him, at Rachel, who was watching us with her hand over her mouth. At Claire, who'd stopped dancing. At my mother, who was pretending she wasn't paying attention. I reached out and touched the top program. The one with the letter. I ran my fingers across the gold foil, across the name of my sister and her soon-to-be husband, across the font I'd chosen and the layout I'd designed. You want to know what I've been doing? I said to Michael. He didn't answer. I've been printing programs. I smiled. It was the wrong smile. I could feel it on my face, all wrong. I printed 200 of them. And I wrote something for Rachel. Put it in the top one. What did you write? I looked at him. He was still standing there, tie undone, shirt untucked, looking like he'd just realized he'd missed something. Just something I needed to say, I told him. I've been doing a lot of that lately. Saying things I need to say. The basement was quiet. Even the pop song had stopped. Rachel was walking toward us, her face a full mask of concern. Claire was behind her, pale pink dress and confused expression. Michael said, "Can we talk? Not now." I shook my head. There's a rehearsal. Rachel needs us. You're not even in the wedding. I turned to look at him. I'd known he would say that. I'd known the minute he walked in, the minute he saw the program and the stack and the ribbons, the minute he realized what had happened. He'd always been like that. Always pointing out the obvious thing, the thing I was already feeling. I know, I said. But I still have a reading. And I still have programs to hand out. I picked up the stack of 200. The one with the letter was on top, right where I'd left it. I ride the stack across the room to where the guests were sitting, and I root handing them out. One for Rachel. One for James. One for the pastor. One for Claire, who looked at me like I'd just handed her a live animal. These are gorgeous, she said. Did you? I did. I'm sorry you're not, it's fine. I kept handing them out. One for my mother. One for Michael. He was still standing in the middle of the room, and he took the program from me without looking at it. Elena. He said my name like he was trying to hold on to something. Michael. I said his name like I was letting go. I finished handing out the programs and walked back to my seat. The rehearsal was about to start. Rachel was saying something to the pastor, and James was looking at his watch, and Claire was whispering to someone on her phone. My mother was reading her program, frowning at the font. I sat down and looked at the top of the stack, the one I'd left on the table. The one with the letter. Rachel hadn't opened it yet. She'd set it down with the others, face up, gold foil catching the light. I didn't know if she'd read it tonight. I didn't know if she'd read it at all. But I'd put it there, and I couldn't take it back, and that was the whole point. Michael sat down next to me. I could feel the weight of him in the chair. I could smell his cologne, the one he'd been wearing for years, the one I used to love. He said, "We need to talk." And I said, "Not here." The pastor called for everyone's attention. The rehearsal was sta rooting. Rachel was walking down the aisle with her bouquet of fake flowers, and James was waiting at the podium, and Claire was standing at the front in her pink dress, and none of them knew I had a letter in the top program. And none of them knew what I'd found in Michael's jacket, and none of them knew I'd been at my desk for 3 weeks writing things I couldn't say out loud. I didn't tell them anything. I just watched Rachel walk down the aisle, and I thought about the receipt I'd tucked away in my wallet, and the photograph I'd taken of it, and the lawyer I'd called on Thursday. I thought about all the things I'd been holding. And I thought about letting them go. The pastor said something about the order of service. The music sta route. Rachel reached the podium. Claire smiled. And I sat there in my seat in the church basement with the 200 programs I'd printed and the one I'd written. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I knew I was tired. I knew I'd been tired for a long time. I knew that something was ending, something that had been ending for months, and I was just now catching up to it. Michael leaned over and whispered, "When this is over, we're talking." I didn't answer him. I just watched Rachel turn and smile at James, and I thought about the receipt and the hotel and the room service charge for $63 Rs. I thought about the letter I'd written. And I thought, finally, that maybe it was time to stop holding everything together. We did the run-through twice. First time Rachel forgot her cue, second time the music sta route to EAROY. I kept handing out programs, people kept asking for extras, and by the time the pastor called it, I distributed all but 3. The one with the letter was still on the folding table. Rachel had picked it up once, glanced at the cover, and set it down again. She hadn't opened it. Michael stayed through the whole thing. He stood near the back, arms crossed, watching me like I was a problem he needed to solve. He didn't speak to anyone else. He didn't shake James's hand or kiss Rachel's cheek or make small talk with my mother. He just stood there, and when I walked past him on my way to the restroom, he caught my elbow. "Elena, let go of my arm." He let go. "I drove an hour to be here." "I didn't ask you to. Rachel told me you were upset. She called me this morning." I stopped walking. The restroom door was 3 feet away. I could have gone in, locked the door, and let him stand in the hallway. But I turned around instead, and I looked at him, and I said, "Rachel called you. She said you weren't answering her texts." "Rachel called you." He shifted his weight. It was a small thing, but I'd known him for 22 years, and I knew what it meant. He was uncomfortable. He was trying to figure out how much I knew. "She said Claire was going to stand up with her instead of you," he said. "She said you took it hard. Did she say that she said you were quiet?" I laughed. It came out sharp, the wrong kind of laugh, the kind I didn't recognize. "She replaced me without telling me, and she told you I was quiet." "Elena, I'm going to the restroom." I walked in and closed the door behind me. The bathroom was small and smelled like bleach. I leaned against the sink and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. I looked older than I felt. I looked like a woman who'd been quiet for 22 years and was just now figuring out what that had cost. I didn't cry. I'd stopped crying Thursday night after I hung up with the lawyer. I'd sat at my desk and sta read at the receipt I'd photographed on my phone, and I'd felt something harden inside me. It wasn't anger. It was something colder. Something that knew exactly what it was doing. I splashed water on my face. I dried it with paper towels. I walked back out. The basement was emptying. Rachel was talking to the caterer. James was folding chairs. Claire was still on her phone. My mother had cornered the pastor, probably asking him something about the communion wine. Michael was exactly where I'd left him. "Can we go home now?" he asked. "We can't. We have the dinner. Dinner's at 6. It's 5:30. He rubbed his face with both hands. "Then we'll go to the dinner. And then we'll go home. And then we'll talk." "Fine." I walked past him and found my purse. I was still CA-ing the 3 leftover programs. I had the one with the letter. Rachel had left it on the table, and I'd picked it up without thinking. It was still there, folded in the paper. The weight of it familiar in my hands. We drove to the restaurant in Sepe Rate Cars. That was my decision. Michael said he'd wait for me in the parking lot. I said I'd meet him there. I sat in my car for 10 minutes with the engine running and the air conditioning blowing, STA ring at the program in my passenger seat. I could have opened it. I could have taken out the letter and read it again. I didn't. I'd written it. I knew what it said. The restaurant was a steakhouse on the edge of town, the kind of place that had dark wood and dim lighting and waiters who called you ma'am. Rachel had booked the private room in the back, and by the time I got there, everyone was already seated. Michael had saved me a chair next to him. I sat down without looking at him. Claire was telling a story about her yoga studio. Something about a client who'd fallen asleep in Savasana and snored through the whole class. Everyone was laughing. I smiled and picked up the bread basket. Elena. Rachel leaned over from her spot at the end of the table. Are you okay? I'm fine. You've been quiet all night. I'm just tired. She looked at me for a second longer than I wanted her to, and then she went back to her conversation with James. I watched her. She was wearing a different ring now, the engagement ring she'd taken off for the Rehearsal. The diamond was modest, maybe half a carat, but she kept touching it like it was the most expensive thing she owned. I knew she'd picked it out herself. James had given her a budget, and she'd stayed under it. She'd told me that like it was a point of pride. Excuse me. I got up from the table. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't sit there anymore. I walked past the waiter and the hostess stand and the bar, and I ended up in the women's restroom again. Same bleach smell. Same tired face in the mirror. I took out my phone. I scrolled to the photograph I'd taken of the receipt. The MA Riot on 4th Street. One night. Room service. Pay-per-view. $63 RS and 84 cents. I'd memorized the number. I knew every detail of the receipt, the date, the time, the check-in time, the checkout time. I knew Michael had checked in at 4:17 p.m. on a Tuesday, and he'd checked out at 9:04 a.m. the next morning. I knew he'd ordered a cheeseburger and a bottle of wine and a movie called something I'd never heard of. I knew he hadn't been watching it alone. I'd done the math. For months since the first sign. He'd been coming home later. He'd been working on weekends. He'd been distracted in ways I'd called stress, and he'd called work. I'd believed both of those things. I'd believed them because I'd wanted to. I put the phone away. I walked back to the table. The waiter was taking orders. Rachel had already ordered for me the filet, medium rare, with mashed potatoes. She'd been doing that since we were kids. Always assuming she knew what I wanted. I'm not hungry, I said. Rachel looked up. You can eat later. I'll get a salad. You hate salad. I looked at her. I've been eating salad for 3 weeks. I've lost 6 pounds. She went quiet. She looked at Michael. Michael was studying his menu like it had answers written on it. Claire was watching me with her head tilted, the way she always watched things she didn't understand. Elena, Rachel said. Are you sure you're okay? I'm sure. The waiter took the orders. I got the salad. Michael got a steak. Rachel got the salmon. James got a burger. Rachel had tried to talk him out of it, but he'd insisted. Claire got something I didn't catch. My mother got a glass of wine and complained about the price. The dinner went on. I pushed lettuce around my plate. Michael drank 2 glasses of wine, then switched to water. Rachel got up and gave a toast to James, and then James gave a toast to Rachel, and then Claire gave a toast that went on too long and mentioned their mother 3 times. I didn't give a toast. No one asked me to. After dinner, they brought out the checks. James paid for everyone. That was the kind of person he was. Rachel had told me that was why she'd married him. He was generous in ways her first husband had never been. I believed her. I just didn't see we need to go, Michael said. He was standing now, his keys in his hand. A day tomorrow. Wedding's at 2, Claire said. You can sleep in. Work, Michael said. I looked at him. You're working on a Saturday, need to check on a project. On your sister-in-law's wedding day, he didn't answer. He just looked at me with that same uncomfortable expression, and I knew. I knew he was lying. I knew he wasn't going to work tomorrow. I knew he was going somewhere else. I said, okay. We left. I didn't say goodbye to Rachel. I didn't hug my mother. I just walked out to my car and got in and drove home. Michael followed me. I could see his headlights in my rear view mirror, Always the same distance behind me, never closing the gap. At home, I went straight to the bedroom. Michael followed me there too. Elena. I'm tired. I know you're tired. But we need to talk. I turned to face him. He was standing in the doorway of the bedroom. His tie was still undone. His shirt was still untucked. He looked like a man who'd been running for a long time and had finally stopped. About what? I asked. About us. I didn't say anything. I just sat down on the edge of the bed and waited. He took a breath. I know I've been distant. I know it's been hard for you. But I need you to know that I'm trying. Trying what? Trying to make this work. What is this? He didn't answer. He walked into the room and sat down next to me on the bed. I could feel the heat of him, the familiar weight of him on the mattress. Elena, I've been stressed. The job, the hours, the Michael. He stopped. I found a receipt, I said. In your jacket. The MA riot on 4th Street. He went pale. I watched the color leave his face, and I knew I'd been right. I'd known for 3 days, but this was the first time I'd said it out loud, and the confirmation of it made my stomach drop. It was a meeting, he said. You ordered room service for 2. Elena, you checked in at 4:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. That's EARLY for a meeting. He didn't say anything. He just sat there, looking at his hands like they'd betrayed him. Who is she? I asked. No one. No one. You checked into a hotel with no one. You ordered wine for no one. You watched a movie with no one. Elena, please. I'm not asking you to explain. I'm asking you to tell me who she is. He shook his head. He was shaking. I could see his hands trembling on his knees. Her name is Marga Rhett. He said. Marga Rhett. Who? She works at the office. She's in my department. Are you in love with her? He didn't answer. That was the answer. I stood up. I walked to the other side of the room and leaned against the dresser. I could see myself in the mirror, the same tired face, the same dark circles under my eyes. Marga Rhett, I said. She doesn't matter. She matters to you. Elena, how long? He didn't answer. I waited. 4 months, he said. I closed my eyes. For months. I'd been losing weight for 3 weeks. I'd been quiet for 3 weeks. I'd been printing programs and writing letters and calling lawyers, and it had all sta root in the same moment. All of it. 4 months, I said. You've been sleeping with someone else for 4 months, and you didn't tell me. I didn't want to hurt you. That's funny. You know what's funny? You didn't want to hurt me. You just wanted to sleep with someone else and let me find out on my own. Elena, I'm not done. I opened my eyes. I looked at him. I found the receipt on Tuesday. I called a lawyer on Thursday. I've been meeting with her for 3 days. He stood up. You called a lawyer. I called a lawyer. Elena, that's not a what? Michael, that's not fair. That's not what you meant to happen. I laughed. You thought I'd just be quiet. You thought I'd just let it go. You can't just. I can. I am. I've already filed for separation. I didn't want to wait. He read at me. His face was doing something I'd never seen before, not anger, not sadness. It was fear. He was afraid. You're serious, he said. I've never been more serious. He walked toward me. He stopped a few feet away. Elena, I'll end it. I'll end it tonight. I'll tell her it's over. Good. You should. She doesn't deserve to be lied to either. I'm serious. I'll end it tonight. Michael. I looked at him. It doesn't matter. What do you mean it doesn't matter? I walked to the closet and opened the door. I took out the suit jacket I'd found the receipt in. The receipt was still there. I'd left it. I'd wanted to leave it. You found the receipt and you didn't confront me. You called a lawyer instead, he said. I told you. I'm done being quiet. Elena, please. We've been married for 22 years. I know. We've built a life together. I know. We can fix this. No. I turned to face him. We can't. Because I'm not the person who's going to fix it. I've been fixing things my whole life. I've been fixing your schedules and your clothes and your relationship with your mother. I've been fixing every problem that came up, and I've been quiet about it. I've been the one who doesn't complain. I've been the one who holds everything together. You didn't have to. I know I didn't have to. I wanted to. That's the worst part. I wanted to be the person who held everything together. I wanted to be the one you depended on. And you know what, you depended on me. You depended on me so much that you thought you could do this, and I'd still be here. He was crying now. I could see it on his face, the TRS he was trying to hide. I didn't feel sorry for him. That was the thing. I thought I would feel sorry for him. I thought I would want to fix it. But I didn't. Elena, he said. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just listen. He nodded. I've been looking at buildings my whole life, I said. I've been restoring old houses and churches and courthouses. I know what it looks like when something is about to collapse. I know how to tell when the foundation is cracked and the structure is compromised and the whole thing is about to come down. What are you saying? I walked back to the bed. I picked up the program I'd left on the nightstand. The one with the letter. I've been looking at our foundation for a while, I said. And I think it's been cracked for longer than I wanted to admit. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, waiting for me to keep going. I'm not going to stay in a marriage that's already collapsed, I said. That's not what I built my life for. Elena, I held up my hand. He went quiet. I'm done. I'm going to sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow, I'm going to my sister's wedding. And on Monday, I'm going to sign the papers. Papers. The CEPE ration papers. I already have them. Elena, you can't just leave. I looked at him. Watch me. I walked out of the bedroom and closed the door behind me. I didn't look back. I went to the guest room and lay down on the bed and read at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. I lay there for hours, counting the cracks in the plaster, listening to the house settle around me. I could hear Michael in the other room, pacing. I could hear him talking on the phone, his voice low and urgent. Probably Margaret, probably telling her I'd found out. I didn't see Ari. That was the strange thing. I'd spent 4 months being anxious about this, and now that I knew, I felt nothing. Just a cold, quiet emptiness that I couldn't fill with anything. I thought about the letter. I thought about Rachel and the wedding and the program I'd left on the table. I thought about Claire and her pink dress and the way she'd looked at me when I'd handed her the program. I thought about tomorrow. I thought about what I was going to do. And I thought about the top program, the one with the letter, and I wondered if Rachel had read it yet. I fell asleep around 3. I didn't dream. I just fell into darkness and stayed there until the alarm went off. I woke up to sunlight and the sound of Michael's car rooting in the driveway. He was leaving. He didn't leave a note. I hadn't expected him to. I showered. I dressed. I put on the navy dress I'd bought for the wedding, the one Rachel had approved. I did my hair. I put on makeup. I looked like a woman at her sister's wedding, and I was going to be exactly that. I drove to the venue. The church basement was already full of people. The caterer was setting up the buffet. The florist was arranging the centerpieces. Rachel was in the back room, getting her makeup done by a woman I'd never met. Claire found me in the hallway. Elena. She was wearing her bridesmaid's dress, pale blue, strapless, the kind of thing you wore once and donated. You okay? I'm fine. You look tired. Didn't sleep well. She looked at me for a second longer than I wanted her to. Rachel told me you were upset about the whole maid of honor thing. She told you that. She said you were quiet. She said she didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I smiled. I know she didn't. She just thought it would be better if I was up there. Since Michael wasn't coming. Michael came. Claire blinked. He did. He showed up at the rehearsal. I didn't see him. He stood in the back. He didn't say anything. I paused. He left this morning, though. He had a project. Oh. She shifted her weight. Well, I'm sure he's doing his best. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out like a cough. Elena, Claire was looking at me like I was about to break something. I'm fine, I said. I'm just tired. Okay. She touched my arm. Just let me know if you need anything. I need you to open the program. She looked confused. The program, did you open it? Did you read it? No. I didn't. I was in a hurry. I just set it down. Okay. I walked past her. That's fine. I'll find it. I found the program on the table near the back, exactly where I'd left it. No one had touched it. No one had opened it. I picked it up. I could feel the letter inside. Elena, what are you doing? Claire had followed me. I didn't answer. I walked across the room to where Rachel was sitting, still in her makeup chair, looking at herself in the mirror. Rachel. She turned. Elena. You look beautiful. So do you. I'm so nervous. I've been nervous all morning. I know. I held out the program. I have something for you. She looked at it. The program, it has something inside. I wrote it for you. Okay. She took it. She didn't open it. Thank you. Open it. Elena, I don't just open it. She opened it. She pulled out the folded letter. She read it. I watched her face change. I watched her process the words one by one, line by line, the weight of them settling on her features. She looked up at me with her hand over her mouth. Elena, she said. What is this? It's a letter. I wrote it the other night. What does it mean, the hotel receipt? Who found a hotel receipt? I looked at her. I'd written the letter in a moment of weakness. I'd told her things I'd never told anyone. I'd wanted her to know. I found it, I said. In Michael's jacket. For months. For months, he's been having an affair. I found out 3 days ago. She read at me. Elena, I'm so sorry. Don't be. What do you mean don't be? Of course I'm sorry. I'm going to leave him. I'm already filing. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, holding the letter, her makeup half finished and her hair still in rollers. Elena, she said. What can I do? Nothing. I smiled. It's your wedding day. You shouldn't be thinking about me. Elena, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. I put my hand on her shoulder. I've been holding everything together for so long that I forgot what it felt like to let go. I'm ready to let go now. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I should have kept you as maid of honor. I should have. It doesn't matter, I said. I printed the programs anyway. I got to hold the stack of them, and I got to hand them out, and that was enough. Elena. Read the letter, I said. Read it when you have time. And when you're done, don't worry about me. I'm going to be fine. I kissed her cheek and walked away. I didn't stay for the wedding. I walked out of the church basement and into the sunlight. I got in my car and drove to the office of my lawyer. Susan was waiting for me. She had the papers ready. Are you sure? She asked. I've never been more sure. I signed my name on the dotted line. I watched her stamp the papers and file them away. I walked out of her office with a clean copy. I didn't go home. I went to the hotel where I was staying for the next few weeks, the one I'd booked on Thursday. I checked in. I went to my room. I lay down on the bed and read at the ceiling and thought about all the years I'd spent holding everything together. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I didn't feel tired anymore. I felt free. The hotel room was small. Queen bed, beige walls, a painting of a sailboat that looked like it had been there since the 80s. I sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hand and read at the screen. No messages from Michael. No messages from Rachel. No messages from anyone. I turned the phone off and put it in the nightstand drawer. I'd been in the room for 3 hours. I'd unpacked my suitcase. I'd hung my dress in the closet. I'd taken a shower and changed into jeans and a t-shirt. I'd sat on the bed and done nothing. At 6, I ordered room service. A cheeseburger and a bottle of wine. I wasn't hungry, but I needed to do something with my hands. I ate half the burger and drank 2 glasses of wine and watched the news on the small television mounted on the wall. Something about a fire downtown. Something about a city council vote. I didn't retain any of it. I thought about Rachel. The wedding would be over by now. She'd be at the reception, dancing with James, cutting the cake, throwing the bouquet. Claire would be at her side, pale blue dress and perfect smile. My mother would be crying. My father would be making jokes. They wouldn't notice I was gone. Not yet. I thought about Michael. He'd come home to an empty house. He'd find my note. I'd left it on the kitchen counter, next to the coffee maker. Short. To the point. Asterisk, I've moved out. Papers refiled. I'll be in touch. Asterisk, I hadn't signed it. I hadn't needed to. I thought about the letter I'd written to Rachel. I'd watched her read it, and I'd watched her cry, and I'd walked away. I hadn't stayed to see what happened next. I hadn't wanted to. I finished the wine. I turned off the television. I lay down on the bed and closed my eyes. I woke up to knocking on the door. I didn't move. The knocking came again. H.A. Ryder this time. Elena, I know you're in there. Rachel. Her voice was muffled through the door, but I recognized it. I got up. I walked to the door. I opened it. She was standing in the hallway in her wedding dress. It was still white. It was still pristine. She'd left the reception. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside. She walked in and sat down on the edge of the bed. She looked at the room like she was trying to figure out what kind of place I'd chosen. Your dress is getting wrinkled, I said. I don't see a Rachel, it's your wedding night. I know. She looked at me. James is at the reception. He knows I came to find you. Rachel, did you leave him? Did you really leave him? I sat down next to her. Yes. Just like that, not just like that. It's been a long time coming. She shook her head. I can't believe it. I can't believe he would do that to you. Neither could I. But he did. How long have you known? 3 days. For now. And you still printed the programs. You still came to the rehearsal. You still handed me the letter. I wasn't going to miss your wedding. Elena. She reached for my hand. You shouldn't have done all that. You should have told me. What would you have done? She didn't answer. She just sat there, holding my hand, her wedding dress pulling around her on the beige pet. I don't know, she said finally. I don't know what I would have done. You would have done what you always do. You would have tried to fix it. Maybe. There's no fixing this. I pulled my hand away. I don't want to fix it. I'm done fixing. Elena. Read the letter. You read it. You know what I've been lying around. Your letter. She looked at her lap. Your letter made me cry. In the middle of getting my makeup done. I cried so much they had to redo my eyes. Sorry. Don't be sorry. I needed to read it. We sat in silence for a long time. I could hear the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic. What are you going to do now? She asked. Stay here for a while. Find a place of my own. Figure out what comes next. That's it. That's your plan. That's my plan. And Michael, I looked at her. Michael is going to have to figure out his own life. She didn't say anything. She just nodded. Rachel, I said. Why are you here? You should be at the reception. You should be celebrating. I wanted to see you. I wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm okay. You don't look okay. I almost laughed. I don't feel okay. But I will be. She reached for my hand again. Elena, you've been CA-rying everything for so long. You CA-ride me through my first marriage. You CA-ride mom through dad's heart attack. You CA-ride Michael through every job change and every crisis and every bad year. You've been CA-rying everything. I know. You don't have to CARRY it anymore. You can put it down. I looked at her. She was crying again. The makeup was running down her face. Rachel, I said. You're ruining your dress. She laughed. It was a wet laugh, snotty and messy. I don't CA-ry, she said. I just need you to know that you can put it down. You don't have to hold everything together. Not anymore. I didn't say anything. I just let her hold my hand. You're going to be okay, I warrant you, she said. I need to know you're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. James is going to be so confused when I get back. Tell him you had to see your sister. I will. She stood up. I should go. Probably. She walked to the door. She stopped with her hand on the handle. Elena, she said. The hotel. The receipt. Was it the one on 4th Street? I looked at her. How did you know? I used to work at the MA Riot. Yeah, RS ago, before I met James. The room service charges were always the same. $63 RS and change. I didn't say anything. The hotel on 4th Street is a meeting place, she said. It's not a nice hotel. It's not a place you take someone you love. It's a place you take someone you don't want anyone to know about. I know. I just wanted you to know that I know. That's all. She opened the door. I'll call you tomorrow. She left. I sat on the bed for a long time. I thought about what she'd said. The hotel wasn't a place you took someone you loved. It was a place you took someone you were hiding. I'd known that. I'd known it the moment I'd seen the receipt. But hearing Rachel say it made it real. I turned on my phone. There were messages. Rachel had sent me something that was probably a heart emoji. Claire had sent a question mark. My mother had sent a voicemail I didn't listen to. And Michael had sent a text. Asterisk where a Ryu asterisk I didn't respond. I turned the phone off again and put it in the drawer. I lay down on the bed and read at the ceiling. The same cracks I'd been staring at for hours. The same beige walls. The same painting of a sailboat. I thought about the kitchen table. I thought about the moment I'd told Michael I was leaving. I'd thought I'd feel something. I'd thought I'd feel pain or anger or relief. I didn't feel anything. I just felt empty. Like someone had SCP'd out the inside of me and left the shell. I slept. I don't know how long I slept. I woke up to sunlight through the curtains and the sound of someone knocking on the door again. I got up. I opened the door. Michael was standing in the hallway. Elena. Michael. Can I come in? No. Please. No. He stood there, looking at me like I was a stranger. I was wearing my jeans and t-shirt. I wasn't wearing makeup. I wasn't trying to be anyone. Rachel told me where you were, he said. She shouldn't have. She was worried about you. I'm fine. Elena, I need to talk to you. You had your chance to talk. You didn't take it. He put his hand on the doorframe. I noticed his knuckles were white. I know I've been a terrible husband. I know I've done things I can't take back. But I need you to know that I never stopped loving you. I looked at him. I'd been waiting for those words. I'd been waiting for them for months. They'd never come. And now that they were here, they didn't mean anything. Michael, I said, it doesn't matter whether you love me. What do you mean it doesn't matter? Because I don't love you anymore. He went pale. He stood there, swaying slightly, like I'd hit him. Elena, he said. You don't mean that. I mean it. After 22 years. 22 years of what? 22 years of me holding everything together while you did whatever you wanted. 22 years of me pretending I was fine when I wasn't. 22 years of me believing that if I was just good enough, just patient enough, just quiet enough, you'd eventually notice. Elena, I don't love you anymore. I said it again. I don't think I've loved you for a long time. I've just been too afraid to admit it. He was crying. I could see it on his face. The tears coming down his cheeks. Please, he said. Please don't do this. Do what? Leave. I'm already leaving. I already left. I signed the papers yesterday. Papers, the CEPE ration papers. They're filed. Elena, you can't. I can. And I have. I looked at him. You need to go. You can't be here. Elena. Go. He didn't move. He just stood there, crying in the hallway of a hotel I'd chosen because it was cheap and anonymous. Michael, I said, there's nothing left to say. There's always something left to say. I've been saying it for years. You just weren't listening. He looked at me. I looked back. We stood there for a long time, the two of us, in the dim light of the hallway. Fine, he said finally. Fine. He walked away. I watched him get into the elevator and disappear. I closed the door and leaned against it. I could feel my heart beating. I could feel the tears in my eyes. I didn't let them fall. I'd been holding them in for so long that I'd forgotten how to let them go. I walked to the bed and sat down. I picked up my phone. I turned it on. There were more messages. Rachel had sent another heart emoji. Claire had sent a string of question marks. My mother had left another voicemail. I ignored all of them. I opened the text from Michael. Where are you? I typed a response. Hotel on 4th Street. I sent it. I didn't know why I sent it. Maybe I wanted him to know that I'd found the receipt. Maybe I wanted him to know that I'd figured it out. Maybe I wanted him to know that I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. He didn't respond. I didn't expect him to. I put the phone down and lay back on the bed. The ceiling was still the same. The walls were still beige. The painting was still a sailboat. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like the room was mine. I stayed in the hotel for 2 more days. I didn't leave. I ordered room service. I watched television. I didn't answer my phone. Rachel called twice. My mother called once. Claire called 3 times. I let them all go to voicemail. On Sunday, I got up early and drove to Rachel's house. She was still in her wedding dress. She'd slept in it. Elena, she said when she opened the door. You came. I needed to see you. I tried calling you. I know. I needed some time. She hugged me. I let her. She smelled like champagne and perfume. Come in, she said. James is making coffee. I walked into the kitchen. James was standing at the counter in his suit pants and an undershirt. He looked tired but happy. Elena, he said. Nice to see you. You too. Congratulations. Thanks. He poured a cup of coffee and handed it to me. Rachel told me what happened. I'm sorry. Don't be. She was really upset. I know. I'm sorry I made her worry. James looked at Rachel. Rachel looked at me. Elena, Rachel said. What are you going to do? Find a place to live. Get a job. Move on. Move on where? Somewhere else. Somewhere new. She looked at me like I was speaking a different language. But you can't just leave. Why not? Because this is your home. You've been here your whole life. I thought about the house I'd lived in for 18 years. I thought about the garden I'd planted and the kitchen I'd remodeled and the bedroom where I'd slept next to Michael for 2 decades. It's not my home anymore, I said. I don't think it ever was. Rachel didn't argue. I stayed for an hour. I drank the coffee. I talked to James about the wedding. I looked at pictures on Rachel's phone. I pretended everything was fine. On my way out, Rachel caught my arm. Elena, she said. I opened the program. The one with the letter. I know. I opened it after you left. I read it. I know. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. All these years. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening. You weren't supposed to. Yes, I was. She looked at me. I was supposed to be your sister. And I was so caught up in my own life that I didn't notice yours was falling apart. I didn't say anything. I want to fix it, she said. I want to help. You can't fix this. No one can. Then let me be here. Let me be your sister. I looked at her. She was still in her wedding dress. Her makeup was smudged. Her hair was a mess. Okay, I said. Okay. She hugged me. I hugged her back. I drove back to the hotel. I sat in the parking lot for a long time. I looked at the building. I'd chosen it because it was cheap and anonymous. I'd chosen it because it was the place where Michael had taken someone else. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel sad. I just felt ready. I got out of the car and walked into the lobby. I checked out. I put my suitcase in the trunk and drove to the office of my lawyer. Susan was in her office. She had the papers ready. Are you sure? She asked. I'm sure. Elena, you've been through a lot. I want you to be certain you're not making a decision you'll regret. I've been certain for a long time. She looked at me. Okay. I'll finalize the paperwork. I walked out of her office and drove to a diner on the edge of town. I ordered coffee and a slice of pie. I ate it slowly. I watched the people at the counter. I thought about what came next. I thought about the letter I'd written to Rachel. I thought about the words I'd put on paper. I thought about the weight I'd been carrying. I thought about the program. The one with the letter. The one I'd left on the table. I'd written it in a moment of desperation. I'd been holding everything together for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to let go. And now I was letting go. I finished my coffee. I paid the check. I walked out of the diner and into the sunlight. I wasn't sure where I was going. But I knew I was going somewhere. And that was enough. I found an apartment on Tuesday. It was a one-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a building that had been converted from a textile factory in the 90s. Exposed brick, concrete floors, a kitchen that was essentially a countertop and a sink. The windows faced east, which meant morning light and afternoon heat. I signed the lease that afternoon. The movers came on Wednesday. I didn't have much. A few boxes of clothes. Some books. The lamp from my desk. The photographs I'd taken off the walls. I left everything else. I left the furniture and the dishes and the silverware I'd registered for when we got married. I left the wedding album. I left the guest book. I left the crystal vase his mother had given us for our 10th anniversary. I walked through the house one last time before the movers arrived. Michael was at work. I'd checked. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to explain myself again. The house was quiet. It had always been quiet. I'd spent years filling it with noise, the television, the radio, the sound of my own voice talking to myself while I could. I'd thought if I made enough noise, the silence wouldn't feel so heavy. I walked into the bedroom. The bed was made. I'd made it that morning out of habit. The pillow on his side still had the dent from his head. I smoothed it out. I didn't know why I did that. I walked into the den. The chair was still there. The one he sat in every night. The one with the worn armrests and the faint smell of his cologne. I looked at it for a long time. I thought about all the nights I'd sat on the couch, watching him watch television, waiting for him to notice me. He never noticed. Not really. He'd look up from the screen and say something about the weather or dinner or the mail. He'd ask how my day was. He'd listen to my answer. But he was never really there. He was always somewhere else. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I left the den. I walked into the kitchen. I opened the refrigerator. There was leftover takeout and a ton of milk and a bottle of wine I'd bought 2 weeks ago. I poured the milk down the sink. I threw away the takeout. I left the wine. I walked to the front door. I looked at the house one last time. The furniture. The walls. The pictures I'd left behind. The life I'd built. I closed the door behind me and didn't look back. The apartment was empty when I got there. The movers had dropped off my boxes and left. I stood in the middle of the living room and looked at the exposed brick and the concrete floors. The place was a shell. It was mine. I unpacked the boxes. I put my clothes in the closet. I put my books on the shelves I'd bought at a discount store. I hung the lamp from the ceiling in the corner. I set my photographs on the windowsill. It took 3 hours. When I was done, I sat on the floor in the middle of the room and looked at what I'd done. It wasn't much. But it was mine. The phone rang. I didn't pick it up. I let it go to voicemail. Rachel left a message. Elena, it's me. I just wanted to check on you. Call me when you get this. I love you. I didn't call her back. Not because I didn't want to. Because I didn't know what to say. I lay on the floor and read at the ceiling. The ceiling was high, maybe 12 feet, with exposed pipes and beams. I counted them. There were 8. I counted them again. I thought about Michael. I wondered where he was. I wondered if he was with her. I wondered if he'd told her I'd left. I didn't see Ari. That was the thing. I didn't see Ari anymore. I'd spent 4 months seeing a ring. I'd spent 4 months trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. I'd spent 4 months wondering if I could fix it. And now I was done. I closed my eyes. I listened to the sound of the building settling around me. I listened to the traffic on the street below. I listened to my own breathing. I fell asleep on the floor. I woke up at 2 in the morning, cold and stiff. I got up and walked to the bedroom. I lay down on the mattress I'd bought that morning. It was still in the plastic. I didn't see Ari. I pulled the blanket over myself and went back to sleep. The next day, I went to the bank. I opened a new account. I transferred my share of the savings into it. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I went to the grocery store. I bought food. I bought a coffee maker. I bought a set of dishes and a pot and a pan. I bought a lamp for the bedroom. I came home. I made coffee. I sat on the floor and drank it. I looked at the boxes I still hadn't unpacked. The phone rang again. I picked it up this time. Elena. It was Michael. I need to talk to you. Michael. Please. Just give me 5 minutes. I don't have anything to say. Then let me say something. I was quiet. I didn't hang up. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I was so blind. I waited. I ended it, he said. With marga. It's over. I don't see Ari. I know you don't. But I wanted you to know. Why? Because I want to fix this. I want to fix us. There is no us. There hasn't been an us for a long time. Elena, the papers Ari filed, I said. The separation is official. You're going to have to accept that. I can't accept that. I can't just let you walk away. You don't have a choice. Elena. I hung up. I turned off the phone. I sat on the floor and drank my coffee and read at the wall. The wall was brick. It was red and rough and uneven. I ran my fingers over it. I traced the mortar lines. I counted the bricks. There were 47 visible from where I was sitting. I counted them again. 47. I thought about the building I'd been working on. The courthouse. The one I'd been restoring for 6 months. I'd been so focused on that building, on its history and its structure and its future, that I hadn't noticed my own foundation crumbling. I got up. I got dressed. I drove to the courthouse. The building was empty. It was a Saturday. The construction crew was off. I walked through the halls with my KCARD and my HRD hat and my flashlight. I checked the work we'd done on the north wing. The windows were in. The floors were refinished. The plaster was drying. I stood in the middle of the courtroom and looked at the ceiling. The ceiling was beautiful. Original tin tiles, painted white, with a chandelier in the center that had been restored to its original condition. I'd done that. I'd been part of the team that restored this building. I'd helped bring it back to life. I thought about what it meant to restore something. To take something broken and make it whole again. To find the original shape and bring it back. I thought about myself. I thought about what I wanted to restore. I didn't want to be the person who held everything together. I wanted to be the person who let things fall apart and rebuilt them anyway. I left the courthouse. I drove to the diner. I ordered coffee and a slice of pie. I sat at the counter and watched the people come and go. The waitress was a woman named Maid. She was in her 60s, with gray hair and a warm smile. She'd worked at the diner for 20 hours. She knew my order. She knew my name. "How are you doing today, Elena?" she asked. "Better," I said. "Better." She leaned on the counter. "Were you not doing well?" I looked at her. I'd known Maid for years. She'd watched me come in with Michael. She'd watched me order the same thing every time. She'd never asked any questions. "I'm going through something," I said. "Something with him." She nodded. Toward the door. "Something with him. Those are the hardest ones." She poured me more coffee. "You're better off without him." I laughed. "How do you know?" "I know because you look different. You look like you're waking up." I looked at her. I didn't say anything. "Take it from someone who's been through it," she said. "The first few days are the worst. But then you start to breathe. You start to remember who you are. Who am I? Yourself. That's who you are." She patted my hand. "Now finish your pie. You've got a long day ahead of you." I finished the pie. I left a tip. I walked out of the diner and into the sunlight. I went back to the apartment. I unpacked the rest of the boxes. I put things on shelves. I hung pictures on the walls. I made the place look like someone lived there. At 6, my phone rang. It was Rachel. "Elena," she said. "I'm coming over. I'm not ready for visitors. I don't see a re. I'm coming over. I'm already in the car." She hung up before I could argue. She arrived 20 minutes later with a bottle of wine and a bag of takeout. She walked into the apartment and looked around. "Elena, this is beautiful," she said. "It's a box. It's your box. That's what matters." She sat down on the floor and opened the wine. She poured 2 glasses. She handed me one. "Cheers," she said. "Cheers." We drank. We ate. We talked about the wedding. She told me about the cake and the flowers and the first dance. She told me about the guests and the speeches and the champagne toast. "James danced with Claire," she said. "He said she looked like she was having a good time." She probably was. She was. She's been on the phone with me every day since the wedding. She keeps asking about you. "What do you tell her?" I tell her you're okay. I tell her you're strong. I looked at her. I am strong. I know. She put her hand on my arm. I've always known. We drank the rest of the wine. She left around 10. She hugged me at the door and told me she'd call tomorrow. I closed the door behind her. I looked at the empty wine glasses and the takeout containers. I looked at the apartment. I looked at the life I was building. I went to bed. I slept through the night. No dreams. No interruptions. Just sleep. I woke up to the sun coming through the windows. I made coffee. I sat on the floor and drank it. I looked at the ceiling and counted the pipes and beams. I thought about the courthouse. I thought about Maid. I thought about Rachel. I thought about Michael. I didn't feel anything. I got dressed. I went to work. The construction crew was back. They were installing the new wiring. I walked through the building with the foreman and checked the progress. I made notes. I made calls. I did my job. I came home. I made dinner. I sat on the floor and ate it. I watched the sunset through the east-facing windows. I thought about the letter I'd written to Rachel. I thought about the top program. I thought about the moment I'd handed it to her. I'd been holding everything together for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to let go. And now I was letting go. I looked at the apartment. The exposed brick. The concrete floors. The windows that faced east. It wasn't much. But it was mine. And that was enough. A week passed. I went to work. I came home. I ate. I slept. I didn't talk to Michael. I didn't answer his calls. He left messages I didn't listen to. He sent texts I didn't read. Rachel called every day. Claire called every other day. My mother called once. I talked to all of them. I told them I was fine. I told them I was handling it. I told them not to worry. They didn't believe me. But they stopped asking. I bought a plant. A snake plant, the kind that doesn't die no matter how much you neglect it. I put it on the windowsill. It was small and green and unremarkable. I watered it once a week. I talked to it sometimes. I called it Marga Red. That was a joke I didn't tell anyone. I went to the courthouse every day. The restoration was moving quickly. We were on schedule. The foreman was happy. The project manager was happy. I was the only one who wasn't happy. But I was getting better. At the end of the week, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. Michael's handwriting. I recognized it from 22 years of birthdays, cards, and grocery lists, and notes left on the kitchen counter. I opened it. Elena, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know you've made up your mind. But I need to say this, and I need you to hear it. I've been thinking about us. About the EARLYERS. About the way we used to be. I think about the first time I saw you at the museum, standing in front of that painting, looking at it like it was the most important thing in the world. I knew then that I wanted to marry you. I don't know when things changed. I don't know when I stopped looking at you like you were the most important thing in the world. I know I made a mistake. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm asking for it anyway. I want to try again. I want to be the man you married. I want to EARN back the years I wasted. I'll wait as long as it takes. Yours. Michael. I read it 3 times. I read it once to understand the words. I read it twice to understand the feeling behind them. I read it 3 times to see if I could find the lie. I couldn't. It wasn't a lie. It was the truth. He meant every word. I still didn't see I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. I put the envelope in a drawer. I didn't respond. I went to the courthouse. I met with the foreman. I reviewed the new plans for the East Wing. I made notes. I made calls. I did my job. At lunch, I sat in my car and ate a sandwich. I looked at the sky. It was blue. There were clouds. They were moving slowly across the horizon. I thought about Michael's letter. I thought about what it meant to want something. I'd wanted Michael once. I'd wanted him so much that I'd built my whole life around him. I'd changed myself. I'd adapted. I'd made myself smaller so he could be bigger. I didn't want him anymore. I didn't want to change myself for anyone. I finished the sandwich. I went back to work. That night, I called Rachel. Can I come over? I asked. Of course. James is working late. It's just me. I drove to her house. It was a small house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place you bought when you were ready to settle down. Rachel had bought it with her first husband. She'd kept it in the divorce. She'd painted it blue and planted roses in the front yard. I walked up the path and knocked on the door. She opened it. She was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. She was eating ice cream out of the carton. Elena, she said. Come in. I walked inside. I sat down on the couch. She sat next to me. What happened? She asked. Nothing happened. I just wanted to talk. Okay. I looked at her. Michael wrote me a letter. He wants me to come back. Are you going to know? Good. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask what the letter said. She just nodded and handed me the ice cream. I took a bite. It was chocolate chip. Rachel's favorite. Elena, she said, can I tell you something? Sure. I was so red when I got your letter. The one in the program. I read it and I thought, this is the thing she's been crying for years. This is the thing she's been hiding. And I realized that I'd been so caught up in my own life that I'd stopped seeing you. Rachel, let me finish. I stopped seeing you. I stopped seeing how tired you were. I stopped seeing how much you were holding. And I'm sorry. I looked at her. She was crying. I couldn't help it. I root crying too. Rachel, I said, you're the best sister I have. I'm the only sister you have. That doesn't make it less true. She laughed. It was a wet laugh, snotty and messy. She hugged me. I hugged her back. We sat on the couch for a long time. We talked about everything. We talked about the first wedding. We talked about mom and dad. We talked about Claire and her never-ending string of jobs and boyfriends. We talked about James and his quiet kindness. We talked about Michael. I told her everything. I told her about the receipt and the hotel and the phone call. I told her about the CEPE ration papers and the APA retirement and the letter I hadn't answered. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know. You could go back. I don't want to. Then don't. It's not that simple. It is that simple. She looked at me. Elena, you've spent your whole life making things complicated. You've spent your whole life trying to hold everything together. But it doesn't have to be complicated. You can just decide. Just decide, just decide. Decide what you want and do it. I thought about that. I'd never just decided anything. I'd always weighed the options. I'd always considered everyone else's feelings. I'd always tried to be fair and reasonable and good. I was tired of being fair and reasonable and good. I want to be free, I said. I want to live my life without anyone else's expectations. Then do it. I don't know how. You'll figure it out. She squeezed my hand. You've always figured it out. I stayed until James came home. He looked tired but happy to see me. He made tea. We sat in the kitchen and talked about the wedding. He told me about the speeches and the cake and the first dance. Claire tried to catch the bouquet, he said. She almost knocked over the mother of the groom. Did she catch it? No. Rachel caught it. She didn't even try. It just fell into her hands. I looked at Rachel. She was smiling. She was happy. She was everything I wanted to be. I went home. I lay on the mattress in my APA retirement. I looked at the ceiling. I counted the pipes and beams. I thought about what Rachel had said. Just decide. Decide what you want and do it. I thought about what I wanted. I wanted to be free. I wanted to be myself. I wanted to stop crying everything. I didn't know how to do that. But I knew I had to try. The next day, I went to the lawyer's office. Susan was in her office. She had a cup of coffee and a stack of papers. Elena, she said. Good to see you. You too. What can I do for you? I want to finalize the divorce. I want it done. She looked at me. Are you sure? I've never been more sure. Okay. She picked up a pen. Let's start. We talked for an hour. We went through the paperwork. We discussed the financial settlement. We discussed the assets and the debts and the division of property. I didn't want much. I wanted the APA retirement. I wanted my share of the savings. I wanted to walk away clean. Elena, Susan said, are you sure you don't want more? You've been married for 22 years. You're entitled to entitled. I looked at her. I've been entitled my whole life. I've been entitled to love and respect and basic human decency. And I didn't get it. Elena, I don't want more. I just want to be done. She looked at me for a long time. Okay. She finalized the paperwork. I signed my name on the dotted line. I walked out of her office. I walked to my car. I drove to the diner. I was at the counter. She saw me walk in. She smiled. Elena, she said. What can I get you? Coffee, I said. And a slice of pie. Coming right up. I sat at the counter. I watched her pour the coffee and slice the pie. She set them down in front of me. Here you go, hon. Thanks, Renai. How are you doing? Better. I'm doing better. Good. She leaned on the counter. You look different. Different how? Lighter. Like you're not crying so much. I smiled. I'm not. I put it down. Good for you. I ate the pie. I drank the coffee. I left a tip. I walked out of the diner and into the sunlight. I wasn't sure what came next. But I knew I was going to be okay. I drove to the courthouse. I walked through the halls. I looked at the restoration work. The windows. The floors. The plaster. I thought about what it meant to restore something. I thought about myself. I was going to restore myself. I was going to rebuild myself. I was going to be whole again. I didn't know how. But I knew I had to try. 2 weeks passed. I went to work. I came home. I watered the plant. I talked to Rachel. I didn't talk to Michael. He kept calling. I kept not answering. The APA meant STA root to feel like mine. The BA walls became less BA. I bought a rug. I bought a chair. I bought a small table for the kitchen. I hung a mirror in the hallway. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I went to the courthouse every day. The restoration was NEARLY finished. The windows were in. The floors were done. The plaster was dry. The chandelier was lit. We were ready for the final inspection. The inspector came on a Thursday. He walked through the building with a clipboard and a flashlight. He checked the wiring. He checked the plumbing. He checked the structural integrity. He signed off on everything. The courthouse was done. I'd helped restore it. I'd helped bring it back to life. I stood in the courtroom and looked at the ceiling. The original tin tiles. The restored chandelier. The light streaming through the windows. I'd done that. I'd been part of it. I walked out of the courthouse and into the parking lot. I got in my car. I sat there for a long time. I didn't know what came next. The project was over. I had a few weeks before the next one STA route. I had time. I had space. I thought about Michael. I hadn't talked to him in weeks. I'd stopped listening to his messages. I'd stopped reading his texts. I'd stopped thinking about him. But I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. We had to finalize the divorce. We had to sign the papers. We had to let go of each other. I drove home. I made dinner. I sat on the floor and ate it. I watched the sunset through the east-facing windows. My phone rang. I picked it up. Elena. It was Michael. I need to see you. Michael. Please. Just once. Just to talk. I was quiet. It's about the papers, he said. I know you filed. I know you want this. But I need to see you. I need to say something in person. I looked at the ceiling. The exposed pipes and beams. When I asked. Tomorrow. Dinner. The place on 5th Street. I'll be there. I hung up. I didn't know why I'd agreed. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to hear what he had to say. But I knew I had to. I needed to close the door. I needed to walk away clean. The next night, I drove to the restaurant. It was a small Italian place, the kind with red checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Michael and I used to come here. We used to sit in the corner booth and order the same things and talk about everything. I walked in. He was already there. He was sitting in the corner booth, wearing a jacket I didn't recognize. He stood up when he saw me. Elena, he said. Michael. Sit down. Please. I sat down. The table was small. There was a candle. There was a vase with a single rose. I looked at it. I didn't touch it. Thank you for coming, he said. I'm here because we need to talk about the papers. I know. But I want to say something first. Michael, just let me say it. Please. I nodded. He took a breath. I've been thinking about us a lot. I've been thinking about where we went wrong. And I realize now that I was the problem. I was the one who stopped trying. I was the one who stopped showing up. I was the one who made you feel like you had to hold everything together. I didn't say anything. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I'm not asking you to come back. I know I don't deserve that. I just need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every time I made you feel small. I'm sorry for every time I made you feel invisible. I'm sorry for every time I chose myself over us. I looked at him. He was crying. I'd seen him cry before. He'd cried when his mother died. He'd cried when we lost the baby. He'd cried when he got the promotion. He'd never cried because of me. Michael, I said, I don't want to hear this. I know. I don't want your apologies. I don't want your regrets. I don't want to hear about how sorry you are. Then what do you want? I looked at him. I want you to sign the papers. He went quiet. I spent 22 years being invisible, I said. I spent 22 years making myself small so you could be big. I spent 22 years holding everything together while you fell apart. And I'm done. Elena, I'm not angry. I'm not sad. I'm not anything. That's the worst part. I've been feeling nothing for so long that I forgot what it felt like to feel something. And I'm not going to do that anymore. What are you going to do? I'm going to live my life. I'm going to rebuild myself. I'm going to be the person I was supposed to be before I met you. He looked at me. I don't know who you are anymore. I looked at him. That's the point. I don't know who I am either. But I'm going to find out. We sat in silence. The waiter came. We ordered. We ate. We didn't talk. When the meal was done, I stood up. Elena. He reached for my hand. Please don't go. I have to. Can I see you again? No. Just to talk. Just to. No. I pulled my hand away. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be the person you call when you're lonely. I'm not going to be the person you run back to when things fall apart. I'm not going to be the person who holds everything together. Elena, sign the papers, Michael. Let me go. I walked out of the restaurant. I got in my car. I drove home. I sat on the floor of my apartment. I looked at the exposed brick and the concrete floors. I looked at the windows that faced east. I thought about what I'd said. I'd let him go. I'd walked away. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel anything. I felt free. The next week, Michael signed the papers. Susan called me and told me. The divorce was final. It was over. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just sat in my apartment and looked at the ceiling and felt nothing. But it was a good kind of nothing. It was the kind of nothing that came after something heavy. It was the kind of nothing that meant I was ready for something new. I called Rachel. It's done. I said. Are you okay? I'm fine. Elena, really? I'm fine. I'm better than I've been in a long time. I don't believe you. Believe me. I smiled. I'm going to be okay. She was quiet. What are you going to do now? I don't know. But I'm going to figure it out. I hung up. I walked to the window. I looked out at the street below. The cars. The people. The life I was building. I thought about the courthouse. The restoration. The work I'd done. I thought about what it meant to restore something. To take something broken and make it whole again. I thought about myself. I was broken. But I was going to be whole again. I didn't know how. But I knew I had to try. I went to the diner. And Maid was at the counter. She saw me walk in. She smiled. Elena, she said. What can I get you? Coffee, I said. And a slice of pie. Coming right up. I sat at the counter. I watched her pour the coffee and slice the pie. She set them down in front of me. Here you go, hon. Thanks, Maid. How are you doing? Better. I'm doing better. Good. She leaned on the counter. You look different. Different? How? Lighter. Like you're not crying so much. I smiled. I'm not. I put it down. Good for you. I ate the pie. I drank the coffee. I left a tip. I walked out of the diner and into the sunlight. I wasn't sure where I was going. But I knew I was going somewhere. And that was enough. 3 months after the divorce was final, I got a call from a firm in Chicago. They needed an architectural conservator for a project. A theater. 1920s. Original plaster work. Original murals. Original everything. The project would last 18 months. They wanted me to start in 4 weeks. I said yes. I didn't think about it. I didn't weigh the options. I didn't consider anyone else's feelings. I just said yes. For the first time in my life, I said yes to something without asking permission. Rachel cried when I told her. She said she was happy for me. She said she was going to miss me. She said I'd better call every week. Claire asked if I was running away. I told her I was running toward something. She didn't understand. She never did. My mother said I was making a mistake. She said I was too old to start over. She said I should have stayed with Michael and worked it out. I told her I'd made my choice. She didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. I packed my apartment. I gave away the furniture. I sold the books I didn't need. I kept the snake plant. I packed it in a box with packing peanuts and labeled it fragile. I called it Marga Red. I still thought it was funny. I said goodbye to the courthouse. I walked through the halls one last time. The restoration was complete. The building was beautiful. I'd helped bring it back to life. I'd helped restore something broken. I drove to the diner. And Maid was at the counter. She saw me walk in. She smiled. "Elena," she said. "What can I get you?" "Coffee," I said. "And a slice of pie." "Coming right up." She set them down in front of me. "Last time," she said. "Last time." "How do you feel?" "Sa red," I said. "But good. That's how you're supposed to feel." She leaned on the counter. "You're doing the right thing." "How do you know?" "Because you're doing it for yourself. That's the only reason that counts." I ate the pie. I drank the coffee. I left a tip. I walked out of the diner and into the sunlight. I drove to Rachel's house. She was waiting on the porch. James was inside, making dinner. Claire was there too. She'd come to say goodbye. I walked up the path. Rachel hugged me. Claire hugged me. James waved from the kitchen. "Elena," Rachel said, "I'm going to miss you." "I'm going to miss you too. Promise you'll call." "I promise." She hugged me again. She was crying. I was crying too. Claire walked me to my car. She looked at me with her head tilted. "You're really leaving," she said. "I'm really leaving." "Aren't you?" Sa red, terrified. "But you're doing it anyway." "I'm doing it anyway." She smiled. "That's the bravest thing I've ever seen." I hugged her. She hugged me back. I got in my car. I drove to the highway. I headed west. The drive took 2 days. I stopped at motels. I ate at diners. I listened to the radio. I thought about nothing. I thought about everything. I arrived in Chicago on a Tuesday. The theater was in the old part of town. It was beautiful. It was broken. It needed me. I moved into a small apartment near the theater. It was different from my old apartment. Different brick. Different floor. Different windows. I went to work. I met the team. I reviewed the plans. I route the restoration. The first week was road. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know the city. I didn't know the building. I felt lost and alone. But I kept going. I kept showing up. I kept doing the work. The theater route to come alive. The murals were restored. The plaster was repaired. The original chandeliers were brought back to life. I stood in the middle of the theater and looked at what I'd done. It was beautiful. It was whole. It was restored. I thought about myself. I was whole too. I was restored. I didn't need Michael. I didn't need anyone to hold me together. I could hold myself together. I called Rachel every Sunday. We talked for hours. She told me about her life. I told her about mine. She said she was proud of me. I said I was proud of me too. I called Claire sometimes. She was still between jobs. She was still between boyfriends. She was still trying to figure out her life. I told her she'd figure it out. She said she hoped so. I didn't call Michael. He didn't call me. We'd said everything we needed to say. The restoration took 18 months. It was hard work. It was beautiful work. It was the best thing I'd ever done. When it was finished, the theater opened. There was a ceremony. The mayor came. The press came. Everyone came. I stood in the back and watched. I watched the people walk through the doors. I watched them look at the murals and the plaster and the chandeliers. I watched them smile. Someone asked me to speak. I said no. I didn't need to speak. The work spoke for itself. After the ceremony, I walked home. The streets were quiet. The sky was arcade. I stopped at a diner near my apartment. I ordered coffee and a slice of pie. I sat at the counter and ate it. I thought about everything that had happened. The wedding. The letter. The divorce. The move. The restoration. I thought about the person I'd been. I thought about the person I'd become. I was different now. I was stronger. I was lighter. I was free. I finished the pie. I paid the check. I walked home. I sat in my apartment. I looked at the brick walls. I looked at the concrete floors. I looked at the windows that faced west. I thought about the letter I'd written to Rachel. I'd written it in a moment of desperation. I'd written it because I needed someone to know. I'd written it because I couldn't hold everything together anymore. I'd let go. I'd put it all down. I looked at the snake plant on the windowsill. It was still green. It was still alive. It was still growing. I smiled. I knew it would. I went to bed. I slept through the night. No dreams. No interruptions. Just sleep. I woke up to the sun coming through the windows. I made coffee. I sat on the floor and drank it. I thought about what came next. I didn't know. I didn't have a plan. But I was okay with that. I was okay with not knowing. I was okay with being uncertain. I was okay with being alone. I was okay with being whole. I put down the cup. I stood up. I walked to the window. I looked at the city. The buildings. The people. The life happening outside my window. I didn't know where I was going. But I knew I was going somewhere. And that was enough.